Hello everyone. I hope you all are fine and your preparation for the exam must be going good, and your confidence level will be increasing day by day, because it is very important that our confidence should rise whenever we are learning new things, and the confidence that we will pass the examination is very important for everyone to succeed. Anyways, let's have a quick review of what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday's revision class was based on budgets. We had a quick discussion about throughput accounting first, and I told you one thing, that in throughput accounting, inventory is considered as a non-value adding item, and inventory should be valued at material cost only. According to throughput, it is ideal that you should not keep inventory, but if you still want to keep it, then throughput says that you should keep inventory just to support the bottleneck. That is, it should be kept to support limiting factor, to ensure that there is no underutilization, no stoppages that occurs with the limiting factor. But if any other factor which is not a limiting factor, those non-limiting factors are allowed to have underutilization if they are not up to the mark, so they are allowed just because their capacity is more than that of the limiting factor. Then we discussed about the ways to improve TPAR, and the shortcut you need to remember is most material costs you need to reduce it, operating expenses you need to reduce it. You can increase the selling prices if the market conditions allow you, and you need to reduce the time per unit. That will definitely improve TPAR. But that does not mean that total hours will be reduced, total hours will remain same. Then we have a discussion about budgets. Budget is a financial plan about the forthcoming period, and budgets includes the estimate of revenues and the estimate of cost. Dear friends, budgets are one that gives the organization the way forward, how they need to proceed in the coming year. So the first budget is basically known as fixed budget. This is the first budget that the organization makes, and in this budget the activity level is one that remains unchanged. The purpose is to set direction and to control fixed costs. Then comes the flexible budget. The purpose of the flexible budget is to ensure like comparison is being made and controlling is being made. And when you need to prepare flexible budget, the units will be of actual and selling price, variable cost, and fixed cost will be of fixed budget. Then we discussed about incremental budget. Incremental budget is a one that starts from the previous period actual results or the budgets, in which you need to justify only the increments that includes inflation and known changes. They are useful in stable conditions, but they have some issues. That is, previous problems or economic activities will be continued into the future. That makes it inefficient form of budget. But yes, it still has its own advantages, that they are time saving, because you just need to justify the increment. Then comes the zero-based budget. And what is zero-based budget? Zero-based budget is a one that basically starts from the base of zero, start from scratch. The assumption is that the activity to which the budget relates is being undertaken for the first time. Okay. Zero-based budget includes decision package, which is first subdivided to mutually exclusive package and incremental package. Decision package tells the purpose of the activity, the consequences of not conducting the activity, and the alternatives of conducting the activity. This package is developed for each and every activity. Then evaluation and ranking is done on the basis of cost versus benefit, and the package that qualifies first is first included into the budget. Yes, zero-based budget is useful because it provides advantages like inefficiencies of the previous period are removed, staff involvement increases, that is important for their motivation, and increment zero-based budget are more efficient form of budgeting. Then comes the issues of zero-based budget. The issues are, yes, very time consuming. Ranking could be subjective between the decision packages, and it requires serious skills to construct decision packages. But still they are usable. They are usable in not-for-profit organizations. The ultimate aim of not-for-profit organizations is to control costs. So zero-based budget works good for them. Then comes the rolling budget, and the rolling budget is a one that is used in uncertain conditions to avoid uncertain situations. Rolling budgets are the one in which, by looking at the uncertainty, you break annual budget into quarters, 6 monthly or monthly, to ensure that uncertainties are incorporated into the budget. Once the first period expires, you add another period into the budgeting system. Once the first period expires, you compare the first budget actual results with the budgets, and all uncontrollable factors are incorporated into the next periods to make sure that they all are updated. This provides the opportunity to the organization that they can control their performance on the basis of recent plan, and it provides them the realistic budget. But the flaws are there, and the flaws are that it is once again time consuming, and it is time consuming activity, plus too much of frequent budgeting will not provide a good opportunity to control cost. So, dear management accountant, this was a quick review of what we did yesterday. Today's agenda is something that is once again very much important for the examination. The first thing to start with is learning curves. Learning curve is a topic that is examined a lot in F5. The best part of learning curve is that learning curve relates to labor. And wherever there is labor in any topic, you can easily expect learning curve to be part of it. This is the luxury your examiner has, and the examiner takes a lot of advantage of that luxury, that wherever labor can come, the workings of labor can be tested, you can expect a learning curve question there. Learning curve is very frequently tested in the examination when you talk about section A, section B, and section C. So, learning curve is a phenomena which says that labor who performs the activity for the first time, now the first time is important here, for the first time, so the time that he takes is the highest because the labor does not have that experience and knowledge. So the time that he takes is the highest one. But as the job repeats, the repetition of the job, once the same work is repeatedly done, definitely due to more knowledge and experience, the time gradually reduces. Okay, reduces. Are you getting my point? And then a time comes eventually when the labor is completely expert. Now, expert means there will be no more learning required then, and the time becomes constant. It becomes a flat line because there is nothing to learn after that. So, dear management accountants, this is something that we can show through a graph as well, that the time it took to produce the first unit was, let's suppose, 45 minutes, for example, okay, 45 minutes. Due to more knowledge and experience, the time is coming down, 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 and a point will come, the time will become completely constant. So this is the time that it became completely constant because there is nothing more that the labor will have to learn. Okay. And this reduction is because of the learning curve impact. As he's learning more knowledge, getting more knowledge and experience, the time is coming down. Okay, so this is the basic idea of learning curve. It pertains to labor, yes, cannot be worked out for any machine intensive environment because labor is something that has the opportunity to learn. Now, how to do the calculation of learning curve? Now, the calculations involve, one of the most important calculation is this one. I'll make it very easy for you people, very easy for you people. Okay, the calculation part. So the calculation that is the most important one is cumulative average time. Now the word cumulative means, what the word cumulative means? Cumulative means the sum of all the units, the accumulation of all the units. So this average time is basically the cumulative average time, which is the average time for all the units produced to date. Okay, so we are working out an average time for entire units. And this average, my friend, does include the learning curve impact. This average includes the learning curve impact. Okay. Now, how to work out these? So there are two approaches to the working of learning curves. Both workings are common. Both workings are one that you can see in your textbook as well. One is easy to remember, is a double approach. Second is a log approach. Through both you can work out the cumulative average time. The answer the both will give will be same. Okay. But my dear friends, log approach is more famous because log approach is usable in many type of questions. Many type of questions. Log approach is more time saving and more simple to use. Sometimes there are questions in which double approach works good, but this is not too much. Sometimes I can say double approach is time saving as well. But remember very clearly so that no one asks this question. I'm sure people are listening me right now, that we will be using log approach majority of the times. Majority of the times, it's the log approach that will be used. Double approach is used in few circumstances that makes double approach a viable option, because in certain situations double approach will give you quick answers. Okay. Now, log approach and double approach both have their own formulas. The log approach formula is basically a one that is given in the examination, and that is y is equal to ax to the power b. Okay, and this is a simple way to learn double approach formula. So this is a simple way to learn double approach formula, that is previous averaged into the learning rate. Okay. Now I will be demonstrating both the calculations right now through one very short illustration, and we will be working out cumulative average time using both the techniques. so that you get to know how to use both. But later on, we will be using log approach more because it is more time saving and seems more relevant in the question. Okay, both provides same answer. Got it? Okay, a quick yes from people so that a good morning through a yes. Okay, don't worry dear, a question came that good people are stuck in the reverse calculation, so don't worry, I'm there and I'll help you out. That is why I've introduced two approaches. Okay, thank you very much. Let's start now. Okay, now let's work out the cumulative average time through a very short illustration. And the illustration is the time to make first unit is 200 hours. Okay, it's 200 hours. Got it, everyone? The learning rate is expected to be 80%. Okay. Calculate, this is the same thing that I told you right now. Calculate the cumulative average time. First, we need to work out this. For 2 units, 4 units, 8 units, using double approach and log approach. So, do understand this. First, I'll write here cumulative units. Then I'll write here cumulative average time. This is what I need to work out. Then I'll write here, okay, we'll write the third and fourth column later on. Okay. Now this is what I need to work out. That is the cumulative average time. So how will the working be done? The first unit took 200 hours. The first unit took 200 hours, okay? Are you getting my point? So the total time for first unit was 200. So what is the average for the first unit? The average for the first unit will be 200 divided by 1, and the average will be 200. First, I am working out this through double approach. So first understand, be very clear in your mind, try to be focused, don't sleep if you are sleepy right now, because if you will not listen, that will create problem. So make sure you are listening very carefully. Okay, I will be covering each and every important point. Now first I am using double approach. So we are starting with double approach. Okay, this is double approach. In double approach, it is important that the units should be doubled. The units should be doubled. For double approach to work, my friends, it is important that units should be doubled. So if I double 1, so 1 if doubled will be 2 units. The double of 2 is how much? 4 units. Okay. The double of 4 is how much? 8 units. So remember, double approach only works out when units are doubled. This is a limitation of a double approach. That is why double approach is not very famous, and double approach is a one that has a limited use, because it is important for double approach to work, unit should be doubled. Got it? So once I've seen that, right now I need to find out the average time of all those units that are actually meeting the criteria of double approach, that is 1 double, 2 2 double, 4 4 double, 8. So I can use double approach now. And the formula says that take previous average and multiply this with learning rate. This is the formula. Previous average, multiply it with the learning rate. Okay guys? So what I need to do here, I'll take the previous average, and this 200 is the previous average, and will multiply this with the learning rate of 0.8. And once I multiply 200 with 0.8, so I will get the average of 160 hours. Now this 160 hours, my friend, make your concepts good. This 160 is the average time for 2 units. So it is the average time for first 2 units, which includes the first unit and it includes the second unit. So it is the average time for 2 units. Got it? Okay. Now if we need to work out the average time for 4 units, so let's apply the formula using double approach. Previous average multiplied by learning rate. So 160 multiplied by 0.8 is 128 hours. Got it? Same goes for 8 units. Now I need to work out for 8 units. So what I do, 128 multiplied by 0.8 will give me the average time for how many units now? 102.4 hours. So 160 hours is the average for 2 units. 128 is the average for 4 units. 102.4 is the average for 8 units. Got it, everyone? This is how the double approach works out. It's very simple. This is how the double approach works out, and this is how, my friend, you will be working and using double approach. Any question? Done? Good. So this is double approach. It is important for double approach that unit should be doubled. It is of limited use, and there are some circumstances where we will be using double approach in past papers. Other than that, it's all ruled by log approach. Okay, is this clear, everyone? Okay, now I'll come later on at the total time. Okay, now if you want to calculate the same figures using same figures, I'm highlighting the figures, using the log approach. If you want to find out the same figures, the one that I'm highlighting, through log approach, so you can do that as well. And the way to do will be to apply the log formula. So guys, let's now apply the log formula and let's see how the log formula works out here. Okay, so let's find out the same figures using log approach. Are you with me? Now I'm writing the formula here. Y is equal to ax to the power b, where y is what you are finding out, which is cumulative average time, where a is time to make first unit, where x is cumulative number of units, where b is log learning rate divided by log 2. Got it? So now let's apply and try to find out the cumulative average time using the log approach. And we'll verify the answers. So let's do it. Y is equal to, first I need to work out for how many units? So I need to work out for 2 units first, okay? For 2 units. So I'm working out for 2 units. And let's see. The time to make the first unit was how many hours? 200 hours. This is A. I need average for how many units? I need average for 2 units. First 2 units. Log learning rate is 0.8. Log 2. So now you need to work out this, and if you work out, your Y answer will definitely be 160 hours. Quickly just work out using your scientific calculators. Is it 160? I'm sure this will be 160 hours. So it is verified here that this 160 is a one that you also worked out here using the double approach. This is verified. Okay. Now let's do it for the 4 units. Y is equal to 200 hours for the first unit. Now you require the average for how many? 4 units. So what we're going to do is that we will write here 4 and the power will be same log 0.8 divided by log 2. So the answer of Y will be same as you worked out for the 4 units using the log approach, and my friend, that answer was 128 hours. Got it? I'm sure you must have a correct knowledge how to use scientific calculator here, okay? Because people do struggle in calculating using a scientific calculator, especially the learning curve log approach working. Now if you come here and let's verify, so yes, this is 128. Got it, everyone? The last is, if you work out for the 8 units, so it's once again the same 200 hours, write it 8 log 0.8 divided by log 2, and the answer will be 102.4 hours. Is this clear, everyone? Got it? I'm sure you don't have any issue in the basics that I'm making right now. Once you learn the basics, whatever the question comes, I am challenging you that you can solve it. Just learn the way out that I'm explaining you. So this is 102.4. So cumulative average time, we worked out through the log approach, which is for 2 units, 4 units, 8 units, which is exactly providing you the same answer that you worked out using the double approach. So same answers you got using double approach. Okay? I'm sure you don't have any question here. So yes, this is cumulative average time working through both the methods and it is same. But log approach is used for each and every type of question, especially few which are difficult to handle using log approach. Plus log approach does not have that condition of units being doubling. So that's why we prefer log approach more rather than we go for double approach. Now, how to work out the total time? These are 3 averages. 2 units average is 160 hours. So this is the average for 2 units, not the second unit. People do confuse a lot. This is the average for 2 units. This is the average for 4 units. 102.4 is the average for 8 units. Now if you multiply this with 2, so you get the total time of 320 hours for 2 units. So the total time for 2 units will be 320 hours. Did you got it? Okay. If you multiply 128 with 4, so you will get the total time for 4 units, and that will be 512 hours. If you need the total time for 8 units, so you multiply 102.4 with 8 and you will get the total time of 819.2. Got it? So this is how we work out the total time. I'm sure there is no issue in the workings up till now, what you have learned here. Now, just one example I'll give here, and then we'll move on to the past paper. If you need to find out the additional time, or if you need to find out that how many hours it took to produce the second unit. The second unit I'm talking about. Okay, if you need to find out how much time it took to produce the second unit. So how will you work out that? So it's very simple. If you need the time, if you need to work out the time for second unit, so what do? You have the time for 2 units. This is 320. Because I don't have space here, that's why I'm doing working above. So what do? You have the time for 2 units, and that is 320. From these 2 units time, you deduct the time for the first unit, and that is 200. From 2 units time, if you deduct the time for the first unit you produced, so you will get the time for a genuine time of second unit, that how many hours it took to produce the second unit. So second unit was produced in 120 hours. Did you got it, guys? So this is how I worked out the time for second unit. The time for 2 units was 320 hours. The time for first unit was 200 hours. And the time for second unit is 120 hours. So actually the second unit separately was produced in 120 hours. Now, do you have any questions? Okay. I'll let you know how to work out the learning rate if it's not given, okay? Okay, I'll also let you know how to work out the time for third unit. So don't worry. You'll learn the tactic of that as well. Now, so up till now, the workings that I've done, I'm sure all must be clear. Now let's move on to the past paper question, and now let's discuss this in more detailed way, and I will explain you how to calculate learning rate if not given. Don't worry about it, okay? That's not a big deal. So the past paper question that we'll start right now is December 2008 question, Henry Company. December 2008 question, Henry Company. Okay, now what do? Quickly, just read out the question and underline the important things. Okay then. So Henry Company provides skilled labor to building trade. They have recently won a contract in which they have to produce 600 identical apartments. So identical is a condition, identical is something, an indication given to you that there will be repetition, okay? HC has not worked for this builder before. Labor for the contract is available. HC expect that first kitchen, this is important to underline, make sure you always find out the time for the first unit, 24 hours. But thereafter the time will be subject to a 95% learning rate. Okay. Now this information is very important till here. And what's that? After 200 kitchens are fitted, the learning rate will stop and the time taken for 200 kitchen will be the time taken for all the remaining kitchens. Now what it means, then once you are done with 200 kitchens, after that labor has complete knowledge and experience. After that learning will stop. Now after 200 kitchens, all the other kitchens, that is the remaining how many? 400 kitchens will be produced using a time of 200 kitchen. So you need to work out the 200, it's TH, okay? 200 kitchen time you need to work out, and that time will be used for remaining 400 units that will be produced. Okay, got it? Labor cost is 15 per hour. Now let's work out the labor hours that will be required for total 600 kitchens. Let's work out the labor hours required for total 600 kitchens. Okay. So labor hours and cost for 600 kitchens. Let's work out this. Remember, if it's a section C question, so presentation is important. If it is not a section C question, then it's not that important. So what you need to do, you need to calculate the labor cost. And how will you do it? You need hours. You'll multiply those hours with the rate of 15, okay, and you'll get the cost. So let's find out these hours through working one. A working area, working one. What I need to do? First of all, what I have to do here, let's make it simple using the same columns which I used in the illustration, so it will be easy for you to understand. Cumulative average total time. Now remember, you are not required to write this in examination, these headings, okay? But these headings makes calculation very simple. So I would suggest you that you remember these headings, because this makes very easy for you to answer the question. Anything which is asked is easily solvable using these three headings. But you are not required, I repeat, but you are not required to show these headings in the examination. Okay? So, how will I do working? First, what I'll do, I need the time for the 200 units. 200 units time I will require. And remember, the question stated that learning will stop after 200 units are produced. So first 200 units, learning will be there. Which approach I will be using to calculate the average time? The approach will be log approach, because I told you double approach has a serious limitation, which is it requires numbers that fall on a double figure. Okay, so it will be very difficult for me to check whether 200 will fall on double or not. So it's better to go for log approach, which is more time saving here. Okay, y is equal to time to make first unit was 24 hours into, I need the average time for how many units? 200 units. And if you look here in the question, they have already provided you with the power value, that is the log value, log learning rate divided by log 2 value is given to you, which is negative 0.074. So you can use this power as well. So if they are provided that, it's better to use this power rather than working your own. So what you'll do, minus 0.074 will be used as a power here, and the answer will be in decimals. Make sure at least you take 3 to 4 decimal places to be on a safer side. Okay, so at least try that you take 3 to 4 decimal places to be on a safer side, so that you get close answer in the examination. Okay, now if I work out for 200 kitchens, the average that I will get is 16.216. I have rounded off this to 3 decimal places, so it's safer to round it off to 3 or to 4 decimal places. So I have rounded off this to 3 decimal places right now. Okay, done. Now this is basically the average for 200 units. 200 units average is 16.216. Now if I need the total time for 200 units, so I'll multiply this with 200 and I will get the total time for 200 units, and that will be 3.243 hours. Got it? So I've used the same working pattern which I have used in the illustration, so that it becomes easier for you to understand. So these are the same headings, my dear management accountants, that I've used in the illustration. So it's 3.243 hours for 200 units. Got it? Any issue? Is this clear, everyone? Okay. Now, for 200 units, we got the total time of 3.243 hours. So to produce 200 units, the time will be 3.243 hours. Got it? Now let's go back to the question and try to understand how we need to resolve this issue. That is, after 200 kitchens are produced, the time the learning will stop as mentioned in the question, and the time taken for 200th kitchen will be the time for remaining 199. Can anyone of you let me know how to calculate the time for 199 units? Be very fast, please. How to calculate? How to calculate the time for 100, sorry, how to calculate the time for 200 unit? A quick suggestion. Yeah, how to calculate the time for 200 unit, 200 unit. Okay, 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 okay. Thanks. Now, how will I calculate the time for 200? So it's very simple now. This 3-column approach is very easy for you. If you work out using this, you won't have any problem. So what you need to do here, you calculate the time for 199 units, because learning will be till 199 units in the same fashion as you did for 200. Write 24, now write 199, negative 0.074. The average that you will get using 199 is 16.222. If you round off to the 3 decimal places here, 16.222. Now this is the average for 199 combined units. Combined units, I repeat. If you multiply this with 199 units, so you get the total time of 199 units, and that will be 3228 hours. Got it, everyone? So I got the time of 200 units, and I also got the time of 199 units. It's S at the end, okay? So how to get the time for 200 separately? So it's very simple. You simply need to do one thing. From 200 units time, minus the time of 199 units, and you will get a pure time of 200 unit, and that is 15 hours. So did you got it, everyone? Is this simple? I'm sure this must be simple. So this is the time for 200 unit. Are the workings clear? Okay. Now let's calculate the hours finally. So first 200 units hours are, we have already worked out, 3243 hours. Okay, first 200 units hours are 3243 hours. The total order was for 600 units. Okay, so now let's calculate the hours for remaining 600 units. As per the question, the time for 200 unit, which is 15, will be applied to all the remaining kitchens. Will be the time for all the remaining kitchens, and remaining kitchens are how many? 400. So the hours for the remaining kitchens will be 6,000 hours. So total is 9243 hours. Now that is why log approach seems more sensible in many situations, because it provides you the opportunity to calculate the additional time of each and every unit you want to. And this is how you worked out for 200 unit, and that same time was applied for the remaining 400 units. Now, just learn this tactic. Whether it is mentioned in the paper or it is not mentioned in the paper, I repeat, just learn the tactic. Whether it is mentioned in the paper or it is not mentioned in the paper, whenever the learning stops, the last unit that was produced, you need to work out the time for that last unit and apply that time for all the remaining units produced after that. I repeat, if the learning stops at a certain point, the last unit produced at that certain point, which right now was 200 unit, so take out the time of that particular unit and just apply the same time to all the remaining units produced after the learning has stopped. Got it? So let's complete this. Total hours 9243. Now we know the hours. Multiply by 15 is 138. 645 is the labor cost. Got it, everyone? 138, 645 is the total cost. Done? Now, a quick answer, a quick test of your knowledge. So you need to answer me very quickly. First, listen my question and then answer me, okay? If I need to calculate the time of 500th unit, 500th unit time, how will I do it? Quickly. If I need to work out the time for 500th unit, what would be the plan? Tell me what I need to do. Be fast, be fast. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll calculate the time for 500 units first. 500 units first, and then we'll calculate the time for 499 units, and then we'll calculate time for 499 units, and then we'll take out the difference of 500 units hours minus 499 units hours will give me the time for 500 unit. Okay? Did you got it, everyone? Any issues? Okay. So this what we did here. Now, let's come back to the question. Dear students, I try my best to answer all the questions because there are so many questions that are coming. So whatever I see, I do answer that. So you need to give me some leverage in relation to that. I try my best to answer all the questions, but if you think I haven't answered your question, so you just repeat the question and I will try my best to answer it again, okay? So this is how we have done the working. Any issues up till now? Is this clear, everyone? Now, very quickly, solve this part C before we move on to one of the questions which require to work out the learning rate. If you look at part C, it says if the second kitchen alone is expected to take 21.6 man hours. Second kitchen alone means the second one only. The stand-alone second kitchen, okay? So if the second kitchen took 21.6 hours, demonstrate how the learning rate of 95 has been calculated. So how will you demonstrate this now? How you will demonstrate this learning rate now? My dear friends, now I will use the double approach because I told you one thing, some type of questions are easily solved using double approach. So remember, so many students were asking right now how to calculate learning rate. So double approach is a way to calculate learning rate. So make it simple for you. Whenever the question comes for double approach, then you go for, whenever the question comes for learning rate calculation, then go for double approach. Otherwise, it's always log approach. I repeat, always log approach with the exception when you are required to work learning rate. So now we need to demonstrate it, how the 95 learning rate have been calculated, okay? So my friends, what I will do, again, I will be using this 3-column approach, which is a universal one, will make it very easy for you. Cumulative units, I'm writing in short, okay? Cumulative average time total time. Okay, now this is the same that I wrote here. Now, the first kitchen took 24 hours and the average of that was 24. Got it? Let's use the question numbers. The question says second kitchen is the second one, took 21.6 hours. Okay, if you add the first kitchen time in the second kitchen time, second kitchen took 21.6. This is given in the question. Given. If you add the first kitchen time, which is 24, so what you will get? You will get the total time for how many kitchens, my friends? You'll get the total time for 2 kitchens. Did you got it? What I did? I started with the second kitchen time, that was 21.6, which was given in the question. I added the first kitchen time of 24 hours in this and I got the total time of 45.6. So this is the time for 2 kitchens combined. Did you got it or not? Okay. Now I need the average for 2 units. So what would be the strategy for that? Because I need to demonstrate the learning rate. Let's assume we don't know what is the learning rate. It is same as if we don't know what the learning rate is. Just assume we don't know what the learning rate is. So we need to work out that. So the 2 unit average will be 45.6 divided by 2 and 22.8 will be the average for 2 units. Got it, everyone? Now, let's assume we don't know what the learning rate is, okay? So this is how we'll find it. Now, apply double approach, which is more simple here. Go for the simple working, not the log one. Double approach, which is more simple. So what you need to do? What was the formula of double approach? Let's have a look, going back to the slide, and let's quickly see what the formula of double approach was. And the formula of double approach was previous average into learning rate. Was this the formula? Previous average into learning rate. Okay. So using this formula, let's work out the learning rate, assuming we do not know what the learning rate is. Are you with me? I'm teaching you how to work out the learning rate. So let's apply the formula. Previous average multiplied by learning rate will give you this answer as per double approach. Guys, this is clear? Previous average into learning rate. I'm applying the same formula which I explained you here to calculate the average time. Okay. So what is the previous average? $24 is the previous average. Assuming this is the missing figure, learning rate we do not know, and the 2 units average is 22.8. Let's solve this one. So the equation is 24 into learning rate is 22.8. Let's work back and find out the learning rate. 22.8 divided by 24. Learning rate answer will be, my friends, 95%. Okay, so see how I worked out the learning rate by working it backward and getting the answer, and this is verified that the question learning rate was 95%. Are you all with me? So this is how we work out learning rate. So let's understand the tactic once again. First of all, we will be using log approach in every situation except a situation that asks us to calculate the learning rate. We'll use double approach. Got it? So what will we do? There must be some information given that will make easy for us to solve using double approach, and that was given here. The time for the second unit was given here, which was 21.6 hours. This was the time given here. Okay, I just added the first unit time to work out the time for 2 units. This 2 unit time was divided by 2 to work out the average time for 2 units. This is the time for average time for 2 units. Then I applied the double approach here, and the formula was previous average, which you brought from here, multiplied by the learning rate, which you do not know, is equal to the cumulative average time. You brought this equation out and solved this for learning rate. You worked it back and you got the learning rate of 95%. Got it? And you can check in the question as well. The learning rate is how much? It's 95%. Here you go. Guys, any question now? Is this clear? Done? Now, okay, now people are asking that okay, now let's do one more past paper that is MCQ based so that your problem or MCQ gets resolved. Okay, so let's solve one more past paper that is MCQ based. So yeah, the question that I'm starting right now is the one that I provided you in the first class, which is not right now attached in the today's handout section. So if it is easy for you to open the first day questions, so it is good. If it is not, so don't worry, you can see from my screen and you can solve right now. I'm taking out the question of ACCA specimen, which is basically a question that is MCQ based. People are asking me about the MCQs, so I will try my best that I do touch the areas of MCQs, and I will, don't worry. First, let's learn the logics, the concepts, and once you are done with the concepts, then MCQs won't create any trouble. Okay, so I will give time to that as well. Now this is the question chair company. So we'll be solving this question right now, and I'll teach you once again how to find out the learning rate. But before I move on to this MCQ 22, I am just discussing MCQ 21 with you people orally, and you answer me orally. Then you can solve later on. And the question is, you need to work out the labor cost. Remember, this is not time, this is labor cost. So it is, when it is labor cost, so first you work out the hours, and then you multiply those hours with the rate per hour, so that you get the cost. Okay, so you get the cost. You need to get the cost for 8 unit. So orally just tell me, how will you calculate the hours for 8 unit? Be very fast. Just write it down in the chat box. Okay, so the simple strategy will be 8 unit time you needed. So what you will do, you will work out the time for first 8 units using the log approach. Okay, and then you will deduct the time for first 7 units from that. So calculate the time for first 8 units, then the time for 7 units, and then deduct the time of 8 units from 7 to calculate the 8 unit time. First 8 units time, then 7 units time, deduct, you get this 8 unit time. Got it? Done? Okay. MCQ 22. Now let's solve this one. You need to work out the learning rate. The first unit took 12.5 hours. Quickly understand this point. 12.5 hours. The total time for first 8 unit was 34.3. Okay, 34.3. At which the learning effect came to an end. Chair core planning on adjusting the price. Calculate the actual time it took to complete the 8 unit. Okay. Now you have been provided with the time for first unit actually took is 12.5. The time for 8 units was 34.3. You need to work out the actual learning rate here. Actual learning rate. So what you need to do in this particular case, you will be using the double approach here to work out the answer, and the approach will be a one, that is, just understand how I am working out the answer. I'll be using this figure as well, this figure as well, and I don't have the learning rate and 8 units information. Okay, so let's work out this. Same approach, cumulative units, cumulative average time, total time. Same 3 format approach. This is the success of learning curve. The first unit time is 12.5 and the average is also how much? 12.5. Got it? What information is provided to you is that you need that you have the time for 8 units. And what is the time for 8 units? So the time for 8 units is 34.3 hours. Got it? 34.3 hours is the time for 8 unit. Can you work out the average time? Yes, 34.3 divided by 8. So the figure came is 4.2875. This is the average for 8 units now. Now how to find out the learning rate? We'll apply the logics of double approach. And what's that? If you require the average for 2 units according to double approach, what would have been the way out? The way out would have been 12.5 previous average multiplied by the learning rate for the first time would have provided you this particular answer. If you apply learning rate of X percentage on 12.5 for the first time, so you will get the average time for 2 units. Okay? 1 double is 2. 2 double is 4. If you apply the learning rate using 12.5, but this time with a power 2, so you will get the average for 4 units, but this time with the power 2, which means 2 times learning rate will be applied to 12.5 to calculate the average for 4. 4 double is 8, which means if you apply the learning rate 3 times on 12.5, so you will get the average for 8 units. 8 units. Got it? So it's very simple. If I apply learning rate on 12.5 for the first time, so I'll get the average for 2 units. If I apply the learning rate on 12.5 for 2 times, so I'll get the average for 4 units. It's the double approach impact. 2 double 4. 4 double is 8. If I apply the learning rate on 12.5 3 times, so I'll get the average for 8 units. Got it? So for 8 units average, you will apply the learning rate on the first unit average 3 times and you will get the answer. So just take out this equation in the same way as we did in the previous question, and you need to solve this equation now and you get the answer. And how will you solve it? Learning rate 4.2875 divided by 12.5. It's 0.343. Got it? Then cubing both the sides. You need to apply the cube root here. And if you apply the cube root, so you will get the answer. Cubing both the sides will result in learning rate okay, because cube root will cancel out the power 3. This is what we did here. Okay, if you cube both the sides, then you solve in your scientific calculators and the answer of learning rate will be 70%. Got it, everyone? So this I solved using the double approach. That is why I taught you both the techniques and made it simple, that which you have to use many of the times is the log approach. And when you are asked to work out the learning rate, then you have to use double approach. Got it, everyone? So this is what is all about. So just learn it. If 2 units average is required, learning will be applied 1 time using double approach. If 4 units average is required, learning will be applied 2 times on the original average, that is 12.5. If 8 units average is required, the learning will be applied 3 times on the average, original average of 12.5, and this is the equation you got that you will solve mathematically to calculate the learning rate. I'm sure this must have helped you out, and there were a lot of questions coming today, how to work out learning rate. That's why I've specially worked out this particular question, which was not part of the plan. So just because of a lot of questions from people, I've just worked out this so that it gets clarified. So this is the way you need to work out the answer. The last thing I'm asking you is just think, if the question comes to work out the learning rate using 16 units. So 8 double is how much? Using double approach, 8 double is how much? 16 units. In that case, the learning will be applied how many times? 4 times. Okay? So if the question states to work out using 16 units average, so remember the learning will be applied 4 times. Power 4 will be used. Got it, everyone? Is this clear? For any further questions, you can WhatsApp me so that I will be answering those all issues separately, and will try my best also to take up those questions at the end of the class as well, if time allows. If you have any questions, just note it down. In fact, just WhatsApp me right now. I'll see the questions and will answer you back. So just WhatsApp me separately what all issues you are facing in this particular calculation. Okay? Okay. So, is this all clear? Done, everyone? I'm sure this is easy. Remember this format. This is very important. Cumulative units, cumulative average time, total time. You can work out anything from this. Log approach will be used many of the times. When you do work out learning rate, you will be using the double approach. This is how you will solve in the MCQs. Now, let's come back and move on to the next thing that we need to work out, that we need to discuss, is the variances area, which again is very important for the examination point of view. And let's just discuss about a few basics before we move on to the break. Standard costing is a topic that deals with standards which are made at the start of the year, and at the end of the year you get the actual results. So it's actual results versus the standards. In paper F2 you had the idea of basic variances. Yes, there are basic variances that will be tested in F5, but with a limited scope. So let's first just recap the basic variances, because I'm just giving you a short recap of that, because quickly we'll move on to the variances that will be examined in the paper. Now people are asking me about the cube working in the learning rate. So let me answer it very quickly. The cube working rate is very simple. Because I need to work out the average time for 8 units, so I just made it very clear. If I required the average time for 2 units, so we'll apply the learning rate just once to get this average. Okay. If I need the average time for 4 units, then I'll apply the learning rate on the same average of 12.5 2 times, power 2, which I've used. That will give me the answer of 4 units average. Okay. If I need the average time of 8 units, so I'll apply the learning rate on 12.5 3 times. This is cube actually, 3 times to get this answer. Okay, to get this answer. Now what I did, using this equation, I solved out the answer, and this was how I worked out 12.5 divided by this figure. I got this answer. Then cubing both the sides means that you have to apply the cube root, which will cut this power 3, and you will apply the cube root on the remaining working of this one, and then you will get, if you know how to use cube root in the calculator, so you'll get the answer of 70% learning rate. Okay, so cubing both the sides, like we square both the sides, it's cubing both the sides. Got it? Okay, now the variances which are tested in F2 were material, labor, variable, fixed, sales. There are high chances of material, labor and sales being tested in the paper. These are the variances that are normally tested in F5, because all these 3 variances are part of advanced variances. So one must have a clear knowledge of how to calculate material, labor and sales variances. Okay, this is what you have learned from paper F2. You cannot expect a question coming. There are very less chances of a question coming on variable and fixed overhead. So just remember the basics, that would be enough for you for the exam. There are less chances of that. Okay. Make sure I provided you the slides. Make sure this is all F2. Make sure that you just go through these reasons for variances, why a variance is favorable or adverse. This is all F2 knowledge. This is just for your revision purpose. So do read out these slides, which will give you a good idea why variances are favorable and adverse. So especially you need to read for 3 areas: material, labor and sales. Okay, done. So do go through these variances, F2 variances, so that you have the basics in your mind. Now, variances which are important for F5 that I'll be covering is mix, yield, planning and operational. These 2 are connected with F2 material, labor and sales. That's why I'm emphasizing a lot that you need to focus on these 3. Okay. So we'll be starting with mix and yield first. Is this clear, everyone? Okay. I think we can take a break here for 5 minutes as people are asking for it before we start with mix and yield. So it's a 5 minute break, and then after that we'll start with mix yield. Okay, so welcome back. Now guys, let's start with mix and yield variances. It is important that you need to remember for mix and yield variance, mix and yield variance is basically a further breakup of usage variance. Now what material usage variance used to tell? Material usage variance was a difference between actual usage and standard usage allowed. Okay, so material usage variance was the difference between actual usage and standard usage allowed. So we break usage into mix and yield. Now guys, there are two important conditions that you need to remember for MCQs especially. That mix and yield will only be calculated when, or material usage will only be broken down into mix and yield when there are more than one material input, more than one material used, and the materials are interchangeable. Now what interchangeable means? It means that if material 1 is used less, so this less usage of material 1 will be covered by using material 2. So actually they work as a replacement of each other. One used less, other will be used more. So this interchangeable means, getting my point? So if more than one material is used, the first condition, and number 2, if the material are interchangeable, then we use mix yield, then we bifurcate usage variance into mix and yield. So usage is a further bifurcation of mix and yield. Got it? By definition, you need to learn this because this might be examined for 1 mark or in an MCQ as well. What is mixed variance? So remember, this is a difference between standard mix, and I'll let you know what standard mix is actually, okay, and the actual mix. Standard mix and the actual mix. You must have seen different recipes if you are in any part of the world. Especially in Pakistan, we have, you know, different types of recipes which people post on Facebook or are also written in different types of forums. So those recipes are standard recipes. For example, you want to make a burger or a cake or a pizza or even a tea as well. I'm sure you must be hungry once you listen all these things. So if you're making a cake, for example, so a cake requires more than one material input. So in these situations, the best way to make a cake, the best recipe to make a cake is the standard recipe, in which you tell how much you have to use sugar, how much you have to use flour. For example, actually I don't know how to make a cake, so I'm just using different names of the material. People who are used to making cakes will get to know. So standard, how much standard you have to use sugar, how much you have to use flour, how much you have to use butter, how much you have to use chocolate. So there is a standard recipe which tells, for example, chocolate will be 60%, for example, and sugar will be 40%. This is standard mix. Okay? So mix variance deals with standard mix, which is a one that should be, and the actual mix that you have actually used. For example, you use chocolate 50% and sugar 50%. In both the situations, cake will be produced. But the difference of this mix, I'm sure people are getting my example. The difference of this mix, chocolate should have been used for 60, sugar should have been used 40. Instead, you have used chocolate 50 and sugar 50. This is something we can say that there is a change in mix between the materials. This change in mix, my friend, is known as standard mix variance. So to make it very easy, 60-40 ratio was standard, actual is 50-50 ratio which you used. I'm talking about chocolate and sugar, for example. So please don't complain that, sir, you are not making a good cake. I don't know how to make a cake, okay? So the difference between standard mix and actual mix is known as mix variance. I'm sure people got my point. So how to calculate this? I'm telling you a formula here. I'm writing down a formula. Using this we'll work out the mix variance. Okay guys? So what mix is? Difference between standard mix and actual mix. What example I gave? You had to use 60-40 ratio of the material. Instead you use 50-50 ratio of the material. That led to mix variance. So note down the formula. Actual input in standard mix, actual input in actual mix. Okay. Quantity variance remember, if answer is in negative, so it will be said as adverse. Okay. If answer will be in positive, so it will be said as favorable here. Got it? So it's easy to remember. If answer is negative, so it's adverse. If it is positive, so it's favorable. Multiply this with standard rate per kg or liter, whatever is given. You will get cost variance. Same favorable and adverse will be used here. Answer, if it is in negative, it's adverse. If it is in positive, it's favorable. So just note down the formula very quickly in a minute. Okay, so this is how we work out this material mix variance. Actual input in standard mix, actual input in actual mix. Quantity variance, if the answer is in negative, so it's adverse. If it's positive, so it's favorable. Okay. What is mixed variance? Remember my example. 60-40 ratio material you should have used, but if you have used 50-50 ratio of that material, the difference is known as mixed variance. Let's move on to the past paper. Okay. I'm not sure whether you are aware of it or not, but I think you should have a good idea about one thing, that in variances, if it is tested in section C, once again it will be tested for 20 marks, and if it comes for 20 marks, then you can expect a 50% calculative question and a 50% theoretical question. So again, you need to write down the theory here if it comes in section C. But if it comes in section B, it will be a calculative based MCQ or a logical theory based MCQ, and I'll cover all these things through this one question so that it becomes easier for you. Okay. Now, this is a question, crumbly cakes, and in this particular question, let's first focus on the relevant area that we need to solve. Is that the details given to you is of a standard cost card, and I'm sure you know what standard cost card is. It tells you how much it will cost to make 1 unit of cake. So there are 4 materials being used: flour, eggs, butter, sugar, and you are provided with kgs here. Okay, and rate per kg as well. So these are standard inputs, that in a cake, flour should be 0.1, eggs 0.1, butter 0.1, sugar 0.1. So the total input will be 0.4. Okay. We'll deduct the loss. Per cake, the loss expected is 0.4 and the net weight of the cake is 0.36. Now I'll teach you a universal method of calculation that is usable in every circumstances, and that is the best way to find out the answer of every question. Okay, so this is standard cost card. Now comes the actual details. 50,000 cakes you are required to produce, but you produce 60,000 cakes, and these are the actual usage of the kgs that you made, and your total input was 23,478, and the details of actual losses and output. You are required to calculate material, price, mix and yield. First, let's calculate mix and yield, which is the most important thing for us, because all the remaining are F2 based. F2 based. So my entire focus is on F5 variances, that is mix and yield. So let's calculate the mix and yield variance of this particular question using the formula that I told you. The formula for mix has already been discussed in front of you. So using this particular question, let's work out the answer. Okay. Be with me. If you have any problem, do let me know. According to the formula, it was actual input in standard mix. Okay? Actual input in actual mix, quantity variance, standard rate, cost variance, okay, cost variance. Now, actual input in standard mix, actual input in actual mix, quantity variance, standard rate, cost variance. So first of all, let's quickly write one thing, that is actual input in standard mix. Sorry, actual input, actual mix. This is much easier. So let's start with the first easier thing. If you go back to the question, so you have these actual inputs in actual mix. You have actual inputs in actual mix. 23,478 is the total input, okay? So if you add all three, this becomes this one. So first I am starting from the second column, which is actual input in actual mix, and it says that 5,700 kgs we have used for flour, 6,600 kgs we have used for butter, 6,600 kgs again we have used for eggs and butter, and sugar we have used 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay, so flour, eggs, butter, sugar. If you add all, so total is 23,478. Now my friends, this is your total actual input that I'm highlighting here. Got it? Total actual input 23,478. Now this input, this actual input is also written here in column 1, actual input. Just see what I'm doing here. 23,478 is your actual input, and this actual input is also a one that will be used in the first column. So same input 23,478. So the input will be same in both the columns. These two are same. So remember, anything which is same, anything which is common will not lead to any difference, will not lead to any variance. The variance will come from anything which is not common in both the cases, and that is what? The actual mix and the standard mix. So what I need to do here is, I need to break this actual input in standard mix. I need to break this in standard mix. So how will I do it? Just have a look. 23,478 input needs to be broken down into which mix? Into standard mix. How will you calculate standard mix? So it's quite simple. Going back to the question, here you have the details of that. And that is, it requires 0.4 kg of input in a cake, and in every cake, flour should be 0.1, eggs same, butter same, sugar same. So using these, we can work out the standard mix, the proportions. of each material, the percentage of each material that will be used. So how will I do it? Point 1 divided by 0.4 for flour. 0.1 divided by 0.4 for butter. Sorry, for eggs. 0.1 divided by 0.4 for sugar. 0.1 divided by 0.4 for sugar. Okay. So I worked out the standard mix, the proportions that were required in the question, that were required in the standard. And I'll multiply these standard mix ratios with the actual input. Okay? Is this clear, everyone? So once I do that, I'll get the answers. You can just quickly work out the answers as well. Okay, so it's simple, very. 0.1 divided by 0.4 makes 25%, 2, 3, 478. It's 6869.5 kgs. And the figure will be same for all four. Okay, got it? This is clear? So if you add all four, the sum will be equal to 2, 3, 478 again. Yes, it will be equal to this same figure. So this is what was required by the standard. This is what was required by the standard. And this is what you have used in actual. So the difference is the variance. So in the first case, if you look here, the difference is of 169.5, and I told you when the answer is positive, it is favorable, and the answer right now is positive, so this is favorable. Okay, got it? But if the answer is negative, my friend, then it's adverse. So this is a negative answer, and this will be said as adverse. So I think this is very simple to remember. When it's adverse and when it's favorable, by looking at the signs are negative, so it's adverse. And in last case, it's favorable. One, 291.5 favorable. Is this clear, everyone? So when the signs are negative, it's adverse. When signs are positive, it's favorable. Now, what favorable means? Very carefully listen this. Favorable means the actual quantity used is less. Okay? Favorable means the actual quantity used is less. So that's why it's favorable. Then what standard required? Again, if you look here, the actual quantity used here as well is less. So it's favorable. But when the actual quantity used is more, like in these two, you can see quantity used is more, so it's adverse. So two are adverse, more quantity used, you can see here, and two favorable, less quantity used. the quantity difference, the minus plus impact of these will be 0 for sure. This should be every time 0. If you look here, this is plus, this is plus. Just check out. The net impact will always be 0. The minus plus effect should be 0 in mixed variance. And you know why? Because, my friend, this is same. The inputs are same. That's why the impact is 0. Quantity impact is 0. One is used less, the other is used more. One is used less, the other is used more. That's why the impact is 0. Now you need to multiply with the standard rates given in the question, and those are 0.12, 0.7, 1.7, 0.5. Okay, so once you multiply, so you get the answers 20.34, okay. Just same favorable and adverse will be transferred here as well, because this is telling the impact of cost. If you use more, the cost will be more. If you use less, the cost will be less. Okay, is this clear, everyone? So you got the answers. It's 1087.11. So what's the final answer? It's adverse or favorable. If you look at, so these are the negative figures and the first two are positive figures. So the answer is what? Adverse. The answer is adverse. So this is how we worked out the mixed variance. Is this clear, everyone? Any issues? I'm sure there is no problem in this. So this is how the mixed variance is worked out. 1087.11 adverse. Now let's quickly discuss the reason for the variance. What adverse means, what favorable means. Very quickly understand this. Used less is favorable, used more is adverse. Okay? Used more is adverse. Now, my dear friends, try to figure out of the four, which is expensive one. This is the most expensive one, okay? Which is the least expensive? 0.12 is the least expensive, which is a cheaper material, okay? Now, 1087.11 adverse is representing what? It's representing that, listen, the expensive material was used more. Adverse means what? More. The expensive material was used more. That resulted in more cost. Again here it's more cost. So the expensive material was used more. Are you with me? Expensive material was used more, but the cheaper material is 0.12. The cheaper material was used less because it's favorable. So cheaper material used less resulted in a saving. But because the expensive material was used more, so that incurred more cost compared to the cheaper material which was used less. So the reason for adverse is expensive material used more, cheaper material used less. We can call this as an expensive mix. The mix was expensive. So this is a mixed variance, the change in the quantities. I repeat, adverse means expensive material, this was 1.7, was used more, and the cheaper material was used less. The net result was additional cost because expensive was used more. Got it, everyone? Is this clear? So let's go back to the handout and let's understand the adverse variance reflects what? The reason for variance says that the adverse variance is a one where cheaper material is used less and expensive material used more, as was the case right now in the particular question. This was the case in this particular question. You got it, everyone? Is this clear? So expensive used less, cheaper used more. Any question? Is the working clear to everyone? Let's move on to the next thing. Had it been adverse, had it been favorable, so the reason would be vice versa. Had it been favorable, so what would be the reason? The reason would be opposite of that, and the reason will be cheaper material in that case would have used more, and expensive material in that case would have been used less. So this will be the reason for that. Are you getting my point? So favorable means cheaper material used more, expensive material would have been used less. Got it? Any question? So this is mixed variance, which tells the difference of mix. Is this clear, please? A quick yes from everyone. We'll discuss who is responsible for the mixed variance. Okay? Clear, everyone? Any issue? Because if you look at the rate, so cheaper is 0.12, 1.7 is expensive. So price per kg is less of that material. 0.12 is lower than 1.7. The cheapest was 0.12 and then it's 0.5. So I just explained it using the extremes. Okay. Yeah, there could be difference in the formula, so don't worry about it. The final answer should be same. But the way I'm using right now is much easier because it makes easier for you to understand and learn it. So this is how it is easy to work out. If you are used to some other formula, so you can use that as well. There's no issue. Now, mixed variance reason is clear. Expensive use more, cheaper use less. Now let's come back to the handouts and now discuss what the yield variance is. Now the yield variance is a difference between standard input allowed and actual input used. Yield is basically output, okay? But there are two ways to calculate yield variance. Listen very carefully. There are two ways to calculate yield variance. One is the input method and second is the output method. The method I'm using right now is input method. If you know the output one, that is okay. Difference of calculation is not an issue. Okay? So I'll be using input method right now rather than output method, and I'll calculate the yield variance. So the difference between standard input allowed and actual input used is yield variance. So let's write the formula quickly. Just note it down. Actual input in standard mix. This is same as mixed variance first column. Exactly same. Just copy paste that. Got it? Actual input standard. This is same as the one that we discussed in mixed variance. Second is standard input allowed in standard mix. Now how to find this? It has a formula. I'm writing the formula to calculate this. So just note down the formula how I will be working out this. The formula is standard kg per unit multiplied by actual units. Please just note down the formula. This is how we work out this one. Standard kg per unit in actual units. So first column is same as mixed variance. Just copy paste that. Second, you will work out like this. Then calculate the quantity variance. Okay, are you with me all? Then work out using the standard rate. Calculate the cost variance. So just note down the formula very quickly. Okay. So the tactic is very simple. Actual input in standard mix. First column, which will be same as mix. Second, standard input allowed in standard mix. I gave you the formula to work out that. The rest three columns are same. So let's work out. Coming back to the same question. Yield variance. actual input in standard mix hold on. Just hold on for a minute, please, because there's some technical issue in the tablet here. Just hold on. Okay. Now, can you hear me, everyone? It's all okay, right? Now, just make a little change in the formula. I just want to make it simple for you, once again, to understand it in negative and positive way. I'm making a little change in the formula, so please just note down that little change. The formula is same, but I'm just replacing the columns here. Okay, I'm just replacing the columns here to make it more easy for you to understand. So please kindly change the columns. I'm just interchanging the columns. Okay, first, standard input in standard mix. I'm just replacing the columns. Number two, same actual input in standard mix. The rest is all same. Now, let's work out. I've just replaced the two columns to make it more simple for you. That will be easy to learn. So just please make a change. Sorry for the inconvenience. Now, the second column, this is same as mix variance first column. So just copy paste that. Let's do it. Standard input in standard mix. Actual input in standard mix. If you look here, so this is the first one that would be exactly copied here in the yield variance. Okay, same 5869.5, 5869.5, 5869.5. In all the four cases, this will be exactly same. Got it, everyone? 23478. So I just copied the first column of mix and the second column of yield. Got it? Now, how to calculate standard input in standard mix? Standard input allowed in standard mix. So I told you the formula for that. And what's the formula? Let's do the working here. It's very simple formula. The formula is standard kg per unit multiplied by actual units. A simple formula. So, flour, eggs, butter, sugar. 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1 kgs should be used per unit. How many cakes you manufactured actually? So the question states that the cakes that we have manufactured in actual were 60,000 cakes. Getting my point, everyone? Just have a look here. The cakes manufactured were 60,000. So multiply the standard kgs with 60,000 cakes that we have produced, and these are the standard kgs. Got it? So you'll get same answer for all, and that will be 6,000. Okay? Total is how much? 24,000. Now, this variance has a separate message. This is different to mix. How? Just listen. If you look here, what are the common things? Mix is common here. Mix is common. So difference is what? Difference is in the input. And what's that? Actual input that you have used and standard input that was allowed to you. In this particular variance, my dear friends, the difference is not a mix. Mix is common in these two. Mix is common, is same. So the difference is coming because of what? What input you should have used and what you have actually used. So this is basically yield variance input method. And in this method, the advantage you get is you do not have to consider losses. This is the best thing about this method, that you do not have to consider losses. Your answer will be same. If you calculate through input, if you calculate through output, the answer is same. But the best thing is you do not have to use losses. So my friends, just have a look. The input allowed to you was 24,000. You should have produced 60,000 cakes using 24,000 kgs. But you used how much? 23,478. So are the kgs used less or more? The answer is less. The answer is less. All the answers are favorable. And when it's favorable, it's good for the company. All the answers are positive. If you calculate the differences, so the answer is positive. And I told you one thing, if it's positive, remember it's a favorable answer. So it's positive. And logically, if you look here, logically it's very clear. You should have used 24,000, but you produced using an input of 23,000. You have used a lower input than standard, okay? And how much lower? It is by 522 lower. So this is favorable for you. Got it, everyone? Less input used compared to standard input. 0.12, 0.7, 1.7, 0.5. Multiply, you'll get the figures. The total favorable answer 15.66, 91.35, 221.85, 65.25. If you add all, you get 394.11 favorable. So dear friends, this is how we work out yield variance. The formula is simple and I'm telling you, it's input formula. Don't be confused. Number one. Number two, if the answer is positive, it's favorable. If the answer is negative, it's adverse. This is easy to learn. But logically, I'm telling you, you have used lower input than what you are required. In yield variance, the difference is coming not because of mix, because mix is same. It's coming because of the input used, more compared to less input. So this is favorable variance 394.11. Got it? Is this clear, everyone? Okay. Now, less input used, favorable answer. Let's discuss the reason why the answer is favorable. Are you done with the calculation? I'm sure. If we go at the handout slide again, just hold on, please. Quickly note down the workings if you want to. Okay, now if you come back to here and let's have a look why it's favorable. So the reason for favorable are quite clear. Cheaper material used, reason number one. Cheaper material used less, okay. Expensive material used more, reason number one. Reason number two, if this is not the reason, the reason is good control over the production process. Okay. So let's now discuss a very important connection between mix and yield. And what's that connection? Now listen, guys, this is favorable. Now favorable reason number one could be cheaper material used less, expensive material used more. If This is not the reason. The second reason is good control over the production process. Are you getting my point? Now, one concept you need to remember is of interdependence. Interdependence. And what is interdependence? It's very simple to understand what is interdependence. Interdependence is simply one variance is favorable and second is adverse. If one is favorable and second is adverse, there is a possibility of interdependence. Okay? Now let me explain you this right now. From this particular example that we did just right now, if you look here, mix is adverse and yield is favorable. Mix is adverse and yield is favorable. I think some problem is going on here. Quickly need to check out. Just hold on for a minute, guys. Okay, finally, we got it. Now, if you look here in this particular question, one is favorable and the second is adverse. Okay, this is adverse and this is favorable. Now the question arises in the mind, is there any interdependence between these two or not? So the question is, there could be a possibility of interdependence. Now listen how. I'm telling you the best way to understand the interdependence. And what's that? Guys, this is adverse. Now why this is adverse? Because we have used expensive material more. You got it? And cheaper material less. Is this the valid reason? So because expensive material used more, the cost increased. This resulted in what? There is a big possibility. In theory, you have to write this. This is a big possibility that is, if one is adverse because cheaper material have been used less and expensive material have been used more, this resulted in less wastage. Because one can assume that if expensive material is used more, so there are less chances of what? Wastage. So wastage is less. Because of the less wastage, you have used lower input than what was required. This resulted in lower input than standard. Are you getting my point? So the reason is very clear. Because expensive material was used more and cheaper was used less. Because of this, less wastage occurred, which resulted in lower input required than the standard. So my friends, this is interdependence. How to learn it? If one is favorable and one is adverse and the reason is same, what I'm saying, the reason is same. So there is interdependence. And what interdependence is? One adverse is making other favorable, or the vice versa. So interdependence means one adverse is making other favorable, and whenever you need to see whether interdependence is there, the easiest way is remember one adverse, second favorable, and the reason should be same. If the reason is same, there is interdependence. Mark my words, this is the best way to identify interdependence. If one is adverse, second is favorable, and the reason is same, there is interdependence. Did you got it? Is this clear, everyone? So, is there chances of interdependence in the current question? The answer is yes, my friends. Expensive material used more, cheaper used less. Because expensive was used more, this resulted in less wastage, which allowed you to produce 60,000 kgs, 60,000 cakes using a lower input than was required. Is this clear? A quick yes. So there is a chance of interdependence. How you will know? Remember the trick. One favorable, second adverse, and the reason is same. Reason is same. There is interdependence. So just have a look. This is the reason of mixed variance being adverse, and if you look here, so this is the same reason which we discussed in mix. Cheaper material was used less, expensive material was used more. This is the same reason why yield became favorable, because expensive material was used more, resulted in less wastage. Got it? So when there is interdependence between mix and yield, if one favorable, if other adverse, there are chances of interdependence because the reason will be same. But my friends, if both are favorable, there is no interdependence. If both are adverse, there is no interdependence. If both are favorable, no interdependence. If both are adverse, no interdependence. Got it? So the first reason of favorable is this one. If this is not the case, if this is not the reason, so the second reason is good control over the production process. That is why input used was less. Why it will be adverse? Vice versa. When you have used cheaper material more and expensive material, yes. So expensive material less if you have used, cheaper material gives you more. So there is a possibility of more wastage, and this wastage will make yield adverse, because then your actual input will be more and standard input will be less. So if your actual input is more than the standard, so this is adverse, and the reason could be expensive material used less, cheaper material used more, resulted in more wastages. If it is not the reason too could be poor control over the production process, that might have resulted in higher input. Got it? Is this clear, everyone? So the rule of thumb is to find interdependence, one should be adverse, one should be favorable, and the reason should be same. There is interdependence. There are chances of interdependence in a question between the variances. Quickly, mixed variance is a difference between mix. Yield variance is a difference between input used compared to the standard. If the answer is negative, it's adverse. If the answer are positive in both, it's favorable. Got it, everyone? Any quick questions that you want to ask? You may. Yes, please. Okay, if there is a loss case, don't worry. The method I told you is input method. In that, losses you can ignore, because the way I taught you is input method, which is easier, and just ignore the losses, you'll get the same answer. Any further questions? Yeah, for output method you have to, but the method that I told you is input, so you don't have to bother about the losses. So I'm sure you must have learned how interdependence is. If one is favorable, second is adverse, reason is same, then there's interdependence. Now the big part is left, that is how to write theory. 10 marks theory you can expect in a question. 10 marks question you can expect in a paper to interpret the theory. And I'll teach you that in the tomorrow's class, because the way that I'll explain you will be a very good one to write the theory. So interpretation we'll discuss tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Examiner never puts a condition to work out through output. It's up to you. Okay. So I hope today's class must have given you more confidence. More calculations have been discussed here. The learning of calculation and the mixed field variance. Tomorrow we'll discuss the interpretation of that as well. In tomorrow's class, I'll be discussing very important section, that is performance measurement. So make sure you don't miss that one, because that requires a lot of important knowledge. Examiner judge your performance on basis of performance management. So we'll be covering that as well in the tomorrow's class. And yes, we will also cover relevant costing. So thank you very much for today's session, and for any further issues, problems, you can WhatsApp me. We have already made a group, and in that group I'll be updating things as today for the practice as well. So whatever you have issues, you can contact me. Make sure tomorrow you are all present, because it's a very important class. Okay. Now, because of the shortage of the time, we cannot cover each and every topic. So I'm going for the most important ones that could be tested in your exam. So I'll try my best to cover more and more topics. Those who haven't yet joined the group, so Just once again to remind, you can join a group for further information and help. And the number is this one. So just send me a message using this number and I'll add you in the group for further updates. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Same time. Bye.